live from Mr. Ippolito's classroom, room 531, during first period. Say good morning, first period class. Good morning. Oh, you can see they're all awake. All right, so we are going to be going over the awesome learning guide, preparing you for your final exam. And so here I am on MrIppolito.com, and I'm clicking on the awesome learning guide. This is everything you need to know for the exam. I'm going to talk about all of it. I'll focus mostly on the second half of everything since the midterm. I'll talk more about that, but I'll focus on everything since everything's going to be on the test. So just to review, just so you know what's going to be on the test, the first half of the test is the civics test. And by the way, if you want to help, help studying for the civics test, I provide a link right here. You click on that link, and these are all the study materials that are provided by the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. You can click on this, for example, and here are all the questions and answers. Those are all right there. You also have these flashcards. These are the same flashcards that we went over in class. You could use these to study as well for the citizenship portion. Again, for the citizenship test, I will be you need to know 100 questions, but of those 100 questions, I will only ask 50. All right, so let's go back to the awesome learning guide. So that's the first half of the test. The final exam is 200 points. 200 points. The first half, the civics test, 50 questions, 2 points per question. That's 100 points. The other 100 points is going to be what we're going to be talking about right now. So the first thing we learned in our class was the purpose of government. We talked about the purpose of government, and we learned about 4 different leaders, Kennedy, Reagan, Ron Paul, and President Obama, and how they felt about the purpose and role of government. If you would like to watch any of those videos again, you can click on this link here, and you can see all of those 4 leaders posted on my website. You should understand the difference between Democrats and Republicans, between conservatives and liberals, and the fact that, in general, Republicans or conservatives believe that the role of government should be smaller, while Democrats or liberals believe that the role of government should be larger, that government should be taking care of its people. Republicans, conservatives generally believe that government should be smaller, that taxes should be lower, and both individuals and businesses should be able to keep more of their dollars to themselves rather than having to pay it in taxes to benefit the public. All right. Next thing we learned about were the foundations of democracy. We talked about ancient Greece, ancient Rome. We talked about our English foundations, the English Bill of Rights. We talked about Magna Carta. If you would like more information about that, you want to do a little bit of review, you can go ahead and click on this. I provide lots of different links. This is the PowerPoint that we went over on the day that we learned about the roots of American government. In particular, you should know about habeas corpus. Habeas corpus, which was, it's Latin for present the body. That's one of the foundations of our legal system today. It means that people cannot be held in prison indefinitely without being charged with a crime. The legal system, the wheels of justice need to start turning. If you're arrested, you can't just be thrown in prison and kept there for any length of time. They do that in other countries. We don't do that here in the United States. You have 48 hours. The police have 48 hours before they have to charge you with a crime, and you have to be arraigned. You have to appear before a judge. The wheels of justice need to start turning. That's habeas corpus. Our only exception to that, of course, would be the prisoners that we're detaining currently in Guantanamo Bay. Those prisoners that we have detained from Iraq and Afghanistan, suspected terrorists, we still have several of those at our Marine Corps base in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And they do not get the right of habeas corpus because they are not considered on American soil. So that's our little loophole, our way around that. You should definitely understand the difference between direct democracy, which was practiced in ancient Greece, and a representative government, a republic. That was what was practiced in ancient Rome. We have elements of both of those in our country. We're officially a republic. You know that, right? Because we elect representatives. We don't have citizens vote on every single law. Every single time the United States wants to pass a law, we don't vote on every law in the United States. However, we do have a little element of democracy. In California, we have a little element of direct democracy. That's called the initiative system, right? Proposition, whenever we have an election, it's Prop 8, Prop 10, Prop 13, Prop 23. All of those propositions, that is an opportunity for people of California, and they have this in other states as well. It's an opportunity for people to vote directly on laws. So we have a little taste of ancient Greece, a little taste of direct democracy at the state level, although we don't do that at the federal level. Moving on to Enlightenment thinkers. We were influenced, especially the Revolution. The American Revolution was influenced by the Enlightenment. So I want you to know these 4 Enlightenment thinkers: John Locke, Baron de Montesquieu, Niccolo Machiavelli, and William Blackstone. There's the PowerPoint right there that I shared in class that day. You should also know the 3 branches of government, the separation of powers, and know what each of these 4 guys believed in and what they contributed, what each of them contributed to our system of government. In the Declaration of Independence, we had the discussion on the Declaration. We know that Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration, that he was greatly influenced by the Enlightenment, by this idea of natural rights. So the old system in England was, or in most of Europe, was that the king is chosen by God, and the king will decide what rights you have or don't have. That was the old system. Here in America, we wanted a new system. We wanted a system where we believed that, you know what, rights are not given to us by a king or a queen or any other person. Rights are given to us at birth. Those are called natural rights. That idea came from John Locke. John Locke says that we are given at birth the right of life, liberty, and property. Thomas Jefferson tweaks that just a little bit and calls it life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that he includes in the Declaration of Independence. And so that, you can learn more about that right here. We watched a couple of videos looking at the foundations of the Declaration of Independence, why we wrote it, and what the foundations of the Declaration were. We learned about the critical period and what made this time so critical. The critical period was the time period in between the Revolutionary War and the writing of the Constitution. It was a time where we did not know if our country was going to survive. The Articles of Confederation were pretty bad. And we talked about and watched a couple of YouTube videos on the Articles of Confederation. We learned about how, the Articles of Confederation did not give us, it didn't give us the power to tax. It didn't give us the power to raise an army or a navy during peacetime. It left us with a very weak government. There was no judiciary. There were a lot of problems with the Articles of Confederation, and the Constitution was created to help solve those problems. If you click on this link right here, all of the problems under the Articles of Confederation, we solved those problems with the Constitution, and we specifically stated in the Constitution, this is why we're writing the Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, we had an imperfect union. Established justice, to have a court system that worked, a federal court system. Ensured domestic tranquility. We had Shays' Rebellion. There was really no way for the federal government to make sure that people were going to be safe. That was left up to the states. Provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. What that means is secure the blessings of liberty. What this means is we want this country to survive so that our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, our descendants can enjoy this country and the freedoms that we fought and died for. So that is why we wrote the Constitution, to create a stronger country. While we were in the process of trying to ratify the Constitution, there were 3 men, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay, who wrote a series of newspaper articles called the Federalist Papers. The Federalist Papers were written specifically to try to, we did this activity back in September, October. The Federalist Papers were written specifically to try to sell the American people on the idea of of ratifying the Constitution. And so we focused specifically on 3 different of the Federalist Papers. Federalist 10 said that the Constitution is going to protect us against the tyranny of the majority. It's going to help protect us against one group of people trying to take away the rights of another group. Federalist 51 talked about checks and balances and how the Constitution is good because it creates a legislative branch, executive branch, and a judicial branch. And each of those powers are separate, and those branches help to check the power of each other branch. And then finally, Federalist 78 talks about the importance of an independent judiciary. In Europe, in most of the countries of Europe, the judiciary, the court system, was under the rule of the king or under the rule of parliament, the legislature, and so really the court system did whatever the king wanted the court system to do. Here in the United States, we're very proud of our independent judicial system, our independent judges who can make decisions without having to worry about getting reelected, without having to worry about raising campaign funds. That's one of the reasons why we choose judges for life, is so that those judges can be independent and make rulings that are going to last for years and are going to be wise legal decisions. Next, we get into the Constitution. We talked about the 7 articles of the Constitution. Really, the most important are the first 3 articles, Article 1, 2, and 3, which deal with the legislative, executive, and judicial branch in that order. The 3 branches of government, the powers of Congress. We talked about the powers of Congress and the different things that Congress can do. How a bill becomes a law, we talked about that. And then finally, we talked about our system of federalism, the way that the state and the federal governments share powers. There are some things that just the federal government does. The United States government is the only one that can raise an army, the only one that can print money or give copyrights and patents, establish federal courts, establish a postal system. The states are in charge of marriage and divorce laws, public schools. They are the ones who conduct elections. And then finally, there are shared powers in the middle here. Collect taxes. Every government wants to collect taxes, and they need to collect taxes. Make and enforce laws, charter banks, provide for the public welfare. Those are shared powers, things that both the federal and the state governments can do. All right, moving on. Next, the Bill of Rights. Bill of Rights, we talked a lot about the Bill of Rights. Here's a presentation right here on the Bill of Rights. We spent, oh gosh, a good 2 or 3 block days at least going over the Bill of Rights and learning about the Bill of Rights. You should know, these are the most important amendments that you should know. I've skipped a few, so I've given you a list of the ones that you should know. You should know the 5 freedoms of the First Amendment. You should know that 2nd is the right to bear arms. You should know 4, 5, and 6. Oh my gosh, you should especially know 4, 5, and 6, because we talked all about how to exercise your rights. 4th Amendment, search and seizure. 5th and 6th Amendments, rights of the accused, what happens after you get accused of a crime. All of those are listed right here. There are also, we did talk in class, though, about our responsibilities as well, right? We have rights, but we also have responsibilities. You have to obey the law. You may have to serve on jury duty. We have to pay taxes. We talked about the draft, and if you're a male citizen, how you must, between the ages of 18 and 25, you have to register for the Selective Service. I've even provided a link for you, so you can do that if you haven't yet done that. How to exercise your rights. We learned from a couple of video series from the Flex Your Rights Foundation about what to do if you're pulled over by the police, what to do if the police come to your home. You should know that, and how to flex specifically your 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights. There are a couple of videos here if you want to go over those, including how to deal with the police and what happens if you get pulled over. Lots of good stuff there. More recently, we learned about the presidency. We talked about the powers of the presidency, the qualifications. If you take a look at this presentation right here, you may recognize this because this is very recent. We just went over this within the past couple of weeks. So you should know about the presidency. We talked about the Electoral College. We looked at the website 270towin.com, and we looked at different electoral outcomes. And we learned that it is not the winner of the popular vote that wins. It's the winner of the electoral vote. So really, it's not just one election in the United States. It's really 51 separate elections, right? It's the 50 states plus the District of Columbia that determines who is going to be the next president. Back in the year 2000, just 13 years ago, when Al Gore and George W. Bush were running against each other, Al Gore won more popular votes. More Americans voted for Al Gore, but because George W. Bush narrowly won in the Electoral College, it was George W. Bush who was the winner. We learned about the Supreme Court. We talked about the justices. You should know about the current Supreme Court justices. I provided this reading for you here of Supreme Court, all the biographies of all the Supreme Court justices. You can check that out there. We worked on a worksheet here on the Supreme Court where we learned about all the justices. We learned that their average age is something around 67 years old or so. They've been around a while, and they are going to be around a while because they can do this for life. And then finally, the rights beyond the Bill of Rights, which we just recently talked about, the women's rights movement, the civil rights movement, the gay rights movement. As President Obama referenced in his second inaugural address, the rights that were pushed for in Seneca Falls, Selma, and Stonewall. Lots of great resources and videos here. You should definitely know. If you don't know, you should definitely know. Title IX, Roe versus Wade, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. You should know Brown versus Board of Education. You should know about Selma, Martin Luther King Jr. You should definitely know about the Stonewall riots, Harvey Milk, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, and Proposition 8. Finally, we also studied current events. I'm going to expect that you will know something about the following current events. The inauguration that we studied back in January. All of the Bong Hits for Jesus cases. If you lost your packet on the Bong Hits for Jesus cases, you can click on this link, and there are more. You can download the Bong Hits for Jesus cases here. The Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. Proposition 8 in the Supreme Court, like we talked about, all the things that were going on in March in the Supreme Court. And then finally, the Steubenville rape case. We learned about that as well. All right, well, hey, that's everything you need to know for your final exam. I'd like to thank my Period 1 class for bearing with me here as I talk a lot right in front of them. Hopefully they got a lot out of this. Hopefully if you're watching this or listening to this, you get a lot out of it as well. Good luck on your final exam. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Hey, Period 1, say goodbye.